We're glad to have you back out here into the Sedona area, Randall. And, you know, the theme this year is the Holy Grail. And you touched on some ideas last year with the Grail mysteries, and we're going to go deeper this year because it's connected to some actual technology that's existing in our midst right now, which you're going to make a brief reveal and disclosure on. Could you give us some background of the origins of the Grail mystery and the Grail romances?
Sure. They actually go back into ancient times. It, a lot of them, the themes can be traced back to Celtic origins. Probably one of the strongest sources of Grail type literature or traditions. Traditions. I'll use the word traditions. We'll go back to the Celts and to the Welsh traditions in that area up in there. The Cauldron of Lugh, the Fisher King, things like that have very parallels in some of the early Celtic mythology. But we generally associate the Holy Grail in its current incarnation with the High Middle Ages. And this is a period between starting with the poem authored by Chrétien de Troyes that saw the light of day in 1180. It was a period of about 40 to 50 years during which the majority of the basic texts saw the light of day, were published, became available. And I guess I'd say at the core of the tradition, there's about, maybe 12 to 20 different things that were written in multiple languages, primarily French, but also Irish, Welsh, Spanish, Portuguese, German, Dutch, Italian. So there were Grail stories written down in all of these languages. But most of the tales that have come down to us were French, maybe with the exception of Wolfram von Eschenbach, who was German. But they all pretty much emerged during this period of incredible creative fertility that was associated with the High Gothic, the High Middle Ages. And this was the time during which the great cathedral building enterprise was launched and reached its peak. It was the time when the catheters came to prominence, when the Order of the Templars came to prominence, when the troubadours came to prominence, when the first schools of Kabbalah were established in Spain, when the Sufis rose to prominence, and there was a tremendous flowering of knowledge in the Middle East, in Islam, when the texts, many of the ancient texts in Greek and other languages were translated into French and German and English. That began during this period of time. The tarot cards, which is a tremendously potent repository of symbolism, saw the light of day. So it was a really interesting time. And the Grail romances were right in the middle, right as a part of that. And they continued. There was various offshoot writings that continued right up until the Renaissance. Probably the most famous is Thomas Mallory's version of the stories. And they're still finding their way into popular culture in modern times, the Grail in various forms. It's even become a figure of speech. If we're talking about, this is the Holy Grail of economics, or the Holy Grail of science is such and such discovery. But behind that, there is this tradition. And it's a very profoundly interesting, powerful, and potent tradition.
And so you said that it's in the modern times as well, in the influence of it. It's in the language, but
Mm-hmm.
do you see it anywhere other than just the language?
Well, certainly in popular culture, it's got a place. I don't think, there is, serious academic studies of it, but those are mostly looking at it as a strictly literary phenomenon. I don't think there's too many. Well, there are studies that are coming from the standpoint that it's part of an arcane or esoteric tradition. or even, a mythic tradition, an occult tradition, if you will. Um, but they're obscure. There's not anything to my knowledge that is really out there widespread. There's some really great books and studies that have been done, since I got interested in this stuff a number of decades ago. And I'm certainly going to be talking about that at the conference. I'm going to try to give people the enough insight into the meaning of the symbols that are so intrinsic to that tradition, that it'll give them some tools that they can then go from with on their own and research further if they want to learn more.